Right. So we saw till what is schema. We just understood what schema was. Now we'll
Yes, sir.
continue. The next slide. It says what is a database object. We discussed yesterday, right? So whenever I refer to a database object, it
Okay.
is basically we are referring to table. Okay, most of the times it will be a table only. Apart
Okay.
from table, there are other database objects also. But
Okay.
as an initial stage, at an initial stages, we'll just refer to as data. But once you move on with the training, we'll have other objects also which we see, which is
Okay.
called an index or something called stored procedure.
Hmm.
Views, sequences, and other things are also called as
Okay.
database objects.
Objects. Okay.
Yeah, so a
Okay, sir.
database object in a relational database is a
Hmm.
data structure used to either store or reference data. So basically, what is that we use to store data? It's a table, correct?
Tables. Yes. Separate different tables that we gather and make it as a database or the data
So
table.
we store information basically in a table and
Okay.
start retrieving data from there. That's what the next line says. The most common object that people interact with is called a table. Is a table. Okay. So what is
Okay.
an there are something called index and store. Yeah, what is store procedure is now
Okay.
as we discussed yesterday, we use a programming language called SQL queries, right?
Okay.
Structured query languages. So
Yes.
SQL queries are all individual queries. It will be of one line. That's it. Compared to other programming languages,
Okay.
SQL query is little different. It is only one line code generally. Okay, so
Okay.
we write something like select star from or
Hmm.
insert something into
Hmm.
or delete star or something like that. So one line of codes will be there. Stored
Okay.
procedures are something which is a group of SQL queries put together,
Okay.
and it's like a functions in other programming. You have any idea of any other programming language like C, C++, or
Um,
Java? VBA, you know, right? You
yes,
must
sir.
have seen
Yes,
some
sir.
sub procedures in VBA,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sub
It's
procedure
like a
and
block of code, correct? So you start a sub procedure and end a sub procedure. In between, we'll write some lines of code, right?
yes.
So that
Yes.
is called a sub procedure. We call it in the VBA, we call it as a sub procedure. In
Okay.
SQL, we call it as a store procedure.
Okay.
Store
Okay.
procedure is nothing but a group of SQL queries put together under one block. Okay, so
Okay.
it acts like a function. So group of sub procedures. First,
Okay.
we'll start understanding what is SQL queries, and then we'll move on to that concept called store procedures. Right?
Sure, sir. Sure.
Indexes is something. View is some other object, database object. View is nothing but instead of the entire table,
Hmm.
we can create separate views by
Okay.
using some of the columns or some of the data. Let's say I
Okay.
have three tables. Okay,
Okay.
so out of those three tables, I have let's say I want two columns from first table,
Hmm.
three columns from the second table, and one column from the third table. Okay, so
Okay.
I want
Hmm.
some information like that. So I can
Okay.
extract those three columns together using some
Hmm.
of the concepts in SQL and store
Okay.
it as another table.
Hmm.
Okay, that table is called a view. Okay, so we'll see. Anyways, I'm just giving you a theoretical knowledge of it, but
Okay.
we'll see in detail how it works and all that.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so that's about indexes, store procedure, sequence. Those are all called as database objects only. But
Okay.
at this point of time, as we are at the very initial point, we consider whenever I say it's a database object, we refer to as table.
Okay. Hmm.
Fine. So tables. Next slide says columns and data types. Let's see how data is stored in a database. As we
Okay.
discussed, database we store the data in the form of tables.
Yes.
Tables are nothing but basically it is rows and columns. It's exactly how we store data in a Excel file, right? So we
Yes.
have
Yes.
some headers as our columns and multiple rows of data. Okay,
Yes.
so
Yes.
the advantage with SQL Server database is we
Hmm.
can store some millions and millions of records and
Okay.
retrieve it based on our query which we write. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
data is stored in rows and columns in a table. A
Uh,
single field in a table is called a column. We call it as columns, of course. Each
okay.
and every field. Okay, so field
Okay.
becomes a column. Let's say
Okay.
employee ID is a column,
Mm.
employee name is a column, location is
Okay.
a column, salary is a column. So each and
Understood.
every field is called as column. All
Mm.
tables are made up of one or more columns, of course.
Okay.
Right?
The column is called here as what?
Field, we call it as field.
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 Field is called as field is it is a column.
It's
Okay.
a column, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yes.
rows are called records. Okay. Each and every
Records.
row, we
Ah.
have call it as row in Excel. We call it as record in database. Each
Okay.
the record. And
Okay.
column we call it as in Excel.
Hmm.
Fields we call in SQL Server. Okay.
Okay.
That's a single field in a table is called a column. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Dinesh, it looks like in Excel we have it's cells and
Hmm.
it's the objects,
Mm-hmm.
cells, sheet are the objects we call. No, in the same way here in this we have these are all the objects that what we are discussing.
See, in Excel, from the base level, we call it as an object.
Yeah,
Not in Excel actually.
cells,
When you use
cell
VBA,
also
that concept
object.
comes. So cell
Ah,
is also one cell is also
object
an
sheet
object.
is also
One
object.
entire range, let's say A1
Yeah,
to let's say D20. If you
mm,
have a range, that range is also called as a object.
object.
Sheet
Okay,
is also called as an object.
object.
Workbook,
Workbook is
collection
also
of
called as
sheets. Workbook is also called an object. That comes in VBA. That's a
yeah,
different
yeah.
thing.
Mm,
Here, database object,
mm.
we don't consider single row.
Okay,
It starts from the table itself. Table is
okay,
the base level object we have here. We
okay,
don't consider each and every record or each and every column as a here we'll not consider it as an object. So
okay,
base
okay.
level object here it is a table only.
Table is object.
In SQL,
Okay,
table itself is an object. From table only it starts, and
okay,
then
okay,
we go for store procedures and all that stuff.
okay, okay.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Okay. So next is data types. I heard you would have heard this terminology in VBA also. There's something called data types. Okay. So what is a
Yes.
data type refer to is what
Hmm.
kind of data you are going to store in a
Hmm.
specific field or a column. Okay.
Okay,
Now, again, we'll consider these four columns: employee
okay,
ID, employee name, uh,
okay.
let's say location and salary. Okay. Now employee name is a data where only text data is allowed, right? You can't say 123 as an employee name. So
Yes.
we should only allow string data to be entered into the employee name column. Same way, salary, if you take,
Hmm.
salary column should only contain numerical data. It
Number.
cannot
Yes.
contain
Hmm.
text data. So what
Okay.
kind of data you are supposed to enter in a specific column, we'll recognize that using data
Hmm.
type. Okay. So data
Okay.
type specifies what
Okay.
kind of data you need to enter into a column, whether you want to enter string data or a text data or a numerical data or date kind of data or whatever it is. Okay.
Yes.
So there
Yes.
are some set of data types in every programming language. Okay. So
Okay.
if you would have seen in VBA, Excel VBA, we
Hmm.
have integer as a data type.
Yes.
We have string as one kind of data type. We have date as a data type, variant as a data type,
Yes.
boolean as a data type. So we have multiple data
Yes.
types in Excel VBA. Now
Yes.
on the same
Hmm.
lines, we have some set of data types in SQL also. This is
Okay.
especially used when you are constructing your tables. Okay,
Okay.
so a
Hmm.
data type defines what type of data the column can contain. Okay,
Okay.
so
Hmm.
if you can say, for example, if the column is to contain a number, perhaps the number of an item in an order, the data
Okay.
type would be numeric. Okay, so same way,
Understood.
if it contain text or something else, it would be text. Accordingly,
It's
there
a
will be some
string.
data type,
Okay. Okay.
right? So data in a
Understood.
table is, yeah, the last line says data in a table is stored in rows. Each record is saved in its own row. So I mentioned, right? Records, each and every row in a database is called a record.
Record.
Yeah.
Okay.
So record and field. We don't generally call here rows and columns. We call
Ah.
it as records and fields.
Field.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So data types will come to that. What are all data types available? We have For integer, we call it as for numerical data, we call it as integer int. Int stands for integer. And
Okay.
varchar, there is something called varchar is used for string kind of a data. I'll
Varchar,
come to
right? BAR.
yeah, yeah, varchar. We call it as variable character length. Na? So VARCHAR. We'll see that. Okay, so there are some data types available. So we'll see that in detail. We'll see the list. Okay.
Okay.
Now, uh, whenever you are talking about databases, okay,
Huh.
now this particular concept is very, very important. There's
Okay.
something called primary key concept. Are you aware of this? What is primary keys, foreign keys, and all?
Oh, no, no.
No. Okay, fine. Let's discuss about that. Primary key is a concept in a database where now, if at all you're talking about a normalized or organized data set, okay.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
mean not about a unorganized data sets. Here we are talking about organized or organized data sets in database terminology is called as normalized data sets. Okay, so we
Okay.
have something called normalized data sets. So when you normalize your data, what is normalization? There is a separate concept. We'll see that. Okay,
Okay.
every data or every table, okay, should have one column with which you refer to. Okay, you have any idea of VLOOKUP in Excel? You worked on
Yes.
VLOOKUPs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, in VLOOKUP, what will you do generally? How will
Generally,
Hmm.
generally VLOOKUP is to retrieve the information that I want from a different table.
Correct, correct,
Okay,
exactly.
so first I take the this one lookup value.
Hmm.
Okay, I
So
put
where
the
you will pick up the lookup value from generally?
lookup value where to where I need the data. I mean, to where I need the data, there only I take the lookup value,
Mhm.
and from there I go to the table array. I select the
Correct,
table array
correct,
which starts the lookup value.
correct, correct, correct.
Okay, and from
Correct.
there I select till where I want, and then I find the and I find and enter the column number. It's a yeah, column number, and then lookup type. It's whether exact match or approximate match.
Exactly, exactly. So one thing, I mean, whatever you're doing, the process is entirely correct.
Hmm.
But in that process, without even identifying, you're actually referring to a concept called primary key there. Okay, you're referring
Okay.
to a column, right? For your lookup value. You said the first
Yes.
parameter is the lookup value. Now, lookup
Yes, sir.
value you will look up into a specific column. Okay,
Yes.
that column ideally will not
Uh,
contain duplicates. Correct, no? So
correct.
it would be unique set of data. Okay,
Yes. Hmm.
and there will not be any duplicates as well. So
Hmm.
any logical data, any normalized data, whether it can be in a database, it can be in Excel, or it can be any other databases, there will be
Okay.
one column to
Okay.
which you refer to
Uh,
extract other parts of your data. Okay, let's say I have again employee table. You'll have
uh,
employee ID, employee name, location, salary, and all that. So if at all you
yes.
want to extract all the other details of an employee, you will
Uh,
have to refer to a particular column called
uh,
employee ID column.
yes.
Okay, which
Uh,
is called
hmm.
lookup value there. There we call it as lookup value. In
Uh,
SQL
hmm.
terminology, we call it as primary key column or
Okay. Okay.
yeah, primary key column. So primary key column refers to a
Hmm.
specific column in a table
Hmm.
which acts as a, source column or which acts as a unique column for that particular table where there are two conditions for primary key. One is it doesn't contains duplicates. It should not contain, in fact, it should not contain duplicates, and it should not
Okay.
contain null values. Okay. Now, if I
Okay.
again refer to employee
Okay.
IDs will always be unique, correct? Every employee will have a unique employee ID. Let's say 111, 222, 333, etc., etc., like that.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
different employee IDs every employee will have, and
Hmm.
no employee will be there in an organization without an employee ID, correct?
You're
So
right.
always there should be some employee ID referred to the employee. So that should not be null and that should not contain
Uh,
duplicates as well, right? So
Ah,
column,
ah,
I mean, when we construct some tables in SQL Server also, we'll always
okay,
remember that every
okay,
table will have, I
mm,
mean, every table will have one column
okay,
which acts as a primary key column for that particular table. That means that column will not contain any duplicates, and that column doesn't contain any null values. Okay.
okay,
Now
okay,
let's see the slide. It says every row in a
ah,
table, that every
mm,
record in a table should
ah,
have some column, or even, I mean, will set of columns
ah,
that uniquely identifies it.
okay,
Okay. So
ah,
sometimes you have one column which is a unique column, or if it is not possible, for
mm,
some reason it is not possible to enter or to have a column which is unique, we'll
mm,
also look at some combination columns.
mm,
Okay. So, but
mm,
rarely we go for combination columns, but most probably we'll go for a single column only. Okay.
yes,
So a
mm,
column whose values uniquely identifies every record in a table is called a primary
mm,
key column. Okay. That means in that column, we should not identify any other repetitive data present in that. Okay. That
okay,
again, the primary key is used to refer to a specific row. Without a primary key, updating or deleting specific rows in a table
mm,
becomes extremely difficult, because there is no specific way how will you refer that particular record in the database. Okay, let's say
understood.
I want to, you know, uh, delete a record. Let's say delete a particular or update the salary of an employee. Okay,
Mm,
now
mm,
will you be able to let's say an employee called Vijay is there. Okay, so there might be multiple names who multiple employees
mm,
whose name is Vijay. Okay, Vijay Kumar can be there,
okay,
Vijay Reddy can be there, Vijay K, Vijay P. There can be multiple employee names whose name is Vijay. Okay,
yeah,
so you can't
similar,
refer to that employee name, or you can't
mm,
refer to location, you can't refer to department. All those
yes,
are repetitive in nature. They can repeat again in the table. But employee
correct,
ID is something which is not repetitive. Okay. Now, whenever you want to
yeah,
update
it
the
is
table
unique,
or yeah, delete the record or
mm,
update the record in that table, we should have one
mm,
column which is called primary key column, with which you will
mm,
start updating. Let's say one employee, let's say 123, employee number is 123. I want to uh, let's say increase the salary, update the salary.
mm,
When you have an employee ID which is unique, I can easily refer to that particular column
mm,
and update the salary accordingly. Okay, so
okay, mm,
in database terminology, it is very important to have
ah,
primary key column in every table which you construct, such that in the future, if you are editing the table or
mm,
updating the table,
ah,
we have to get primary key column as a reference as such.
okay,
Understood what is primary key?
yes, understood.
Okay, okay,
Now it is very clear.
good. Okay, right. So, although the next slide says, although primary keys are not actually required, most database designers ensure that every
Mm,
table they create has a primary key, so that future data manipulations is possible and easily manageable. I think you can understand now, right? So when you create a
yes,
table, even if you don't create a primary key, your database will allow you to create a table. It will not throw you any error. But most of the database designers,
ah,
every time they ensure that every table will have a primary key, such that updation, deletion, manipulation is very much manageable.
easier,
Okay.
yes,
Yes. Any column in a table can be established as a primary key.
ah,
Okay. So that's what. Any column can be. It's not only employee ID. You can assign any column as a primary key, but only condition is it meets the two below conditions.
okay,
Very important conditions. You can make a note of it. No two rows can have the same primary key value. That means no two records have duplicates. Correct.
okay,
So repetition of the data should not happen. Second criteria is every row must have a primary key value, and it may not allow null values. Every
okay,
record in a primary key column, there should be some data entered. You should not leave it blank. If you leave it
Okay.
blank, whenever you are updating the record, that time itself you will get a error.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
if you would have declared it as a primary key, database itself will not allow you to leave it as a blank line. So these two conditions have to be met for your primary key to work
Okay.
properly. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
One is there should be no repetition in the
Correct.
record. Okay.
Correct.
And
Yes.
every record should contain the value.
Yes. Absolutely. It should not contain null
Okay.
values. That means it should contain some value.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So these two conditions are mandatory for your primary key column always.
Okay.
Yeah. So in some we very rarely use concatenated primary keys. In some cases where
Huh.
let's say there is no primary key possibility for you to include a primary key column. Some or the other way, some repetitions are happening in your table. Okay, then
Okay.
what we generally do is we'll consider two different columns, and that
Okay.
combination of two columns should be unique. We'll make sure that that is called concatenated primary key. Okay, concatenation refers to, I think you will use this terminology in Excel
In
also.
Excel. Yes. Yes.
Concatenation refers to merging two different columns, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
if at all single column is not possible, okay, so single column uniqueness is not achieved, then we
Uh,
can go for multiple columns together as a single concatenated primary key column, such that
okay.
that concatenated column acts as a primary key column for that specific table. So primary
Okay.
keys are usually defined on a single column within a
Okay.
table,
Uh,
but this is not required, and multiple columns can be used together as a primary key also.
okay.
Okay, so when multiple columns are used, the rules previously listed must apply to all the columns that make up to the primary key. That means we saw two rules now, which is
Hmm.
unique and no not null. So that again should follow even when you are
Okay.
concatenating two different columns together. Uh,
Okay.
and the concatenated column should not contain duplicates, should not contain that should be
Sorry.
taken care of.
It should not contain what?
That's what. It should not contain duplicates.
Yeah.
Duplicates.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
two rules will apply.
Yeah. Two rules will apply for the concatenated column also.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Fine. So this is the most important slide to remember what is a SQL, right? So
Okay.
I already mentioned this. SQL refers to structured query language. SQL abbreviation is structured query language. SQL language designed specifically for communicating with the databases. We already discussed this yesterday, huh? So
Yeah.
this is the language which we use to interact with the database via a tool called DBMS tool called SQL Server 2014 or whatever it is.
Okay.
Okay, so SQL is made up of very few words. Is
Uh,
designed in such a way that it will provide you with a simple and efficient way to read and write data from the database. So relatively, it is easy. It won't be very difficult. Like Linux and Unix, there are some programming codes like Linux and Unix. There you need to remember a lot of keywords. It's
okay.
not even plain English. They're in a different language altogether. You need to
Uh,
remember that. But here in SQL Server, it's not very difficult to remember the keywords. They are like plain
uh,
English only. If at all you want to try to select some data from the database, select is a
mm.
keyword. Okay. If at all you want
Oh,
to update the database, update is a keyword. If you want to
very nice.
delete the records, delete is a keyword. So keywords
Okay.
are very easy to remember, and it is like plain English only. So
Okay.
that's what SQL is. Once again, SQL is a language
Okay.
like English or French or Telugu or Tamil or whatever. SQL is
Okay.
also a language, okay,
Okay.
which is specially designed for querying databases, for interacting with databases.
Okay.
Yes. So TSQL, Transact-SQL is another thing. So SQL is a common language, structure query language. I told you, right? It's a common language, but especially in SQL Server, we use the programming language which is called Transact-SQL. Okay, so SQL is a common language to all the database DBMS, database management system.
Okay.
No two DBMS implement the SQL identically.
Okay.
Okay, so again, I can refer to that same chocolate example which I referred yesterday. So we
Okay.
have a Choco. Choco is common, right?
Yes.
But we have different flavors of chocolates. Five
Yes.
star taste little different, Dairy Milk taste little different, but it's all Choco.
Yes.
Okay, again, it's the same
Yes.
concept here. SQL
Okay.
is a common database management language. Okay,
Okay.
and they will take that language into consideration, and each and every vendor will create their own language. Okay,
Okay.
if you want to give me another example, you see all the Android mobiles, no? Android mobiles. So Android is a common
Yeah.
platform, okay, or a common OS, you call it as operating system, okay. But if you see Samsung
Yeah.
mobiles, they will implement the same Android in a different way. If you see
Yeah.
Motorola, they will implement it in a different way. Nowadays, it has all become common. But if you would have used smartphones in the previous, let's say in 2010, those times, you will see a lot of
Mm.
difference between normal touchscreen mobiles and Samsung touchscreen mobiles. There will be a lot of differences with the OS which they implement. Their OS will be
Yes.
little, even though they use Android, they will do a lot
Mm.
of customizations for their Android. Okay, all the
Yes. Yes.
options will be different, very easily available. Options will be there,
Mm.
and the way it is structured is very user friendly previously in all the Samsung mobiles. So they will take that Android. Android is a common OS, and they will
Yeah.
add some extra flavors to it, add some extra
Yeah.
coding in such a way that users can easily access the options available with that. Motorola will
Yes.
implement it in such a way,
Mm.
in a different way. MI will implement it in a different way. Now, almost
Mm.
all the smartphones will come with the basic Android OS. They will not add any additional flavors to it. It just comes normally. That's why you don't feel much difference between any of the mobiles these days. But previously, it was not like that. Samsung used
Yeah.
to customize a lot. Okay, so
Uh,
the Android OS. So that's why it was very successful at the initial stages. Uh, yeah.
yeah.
So that's how SQL also.
Mm.
SQL is a core database programming language, which
Okay.
will be taken by different vendors, say Microsoft, Oracle, Sun Network, different vendors will take Android, not Android, SQL into consideration, and they will implement their own SQL language. Okay,
Okay.
the SQL query language which Microsoft implements is called Transact-SQL, TSQL we call it as. Okay, that's for the second
Okay.
point. So the SQL which we use
Huh.
in your Microsoft SQL Server is TSQL, we call it as Transact-SQL. Okay,
Okay.
and although much of the language will be usable with other DBMS, do not assume complete SQL syntax portability. That means
Mm.
if you see Oracle database, okay,
Okay.
there also all the SQL queries, most of the SQL queries, I can say 80 to 85%, most of the SQL queries are similar. Okay,
Mm.
but they
Mm.
will have their own methods, they'll have their own functions, different. A bit of difference will be there here and there. But
Mm.
otherwise, you can easily relate to whatever they are implementing, and whatever you are implementing is Microsoft SQL Server. Both are almost similar. 80 to 85% you'll see similarities. The remaining 10-20% you'll see difference between those those other languages as well. So
Mm.
that's the idea behind TSQL. TSQL is the flavor which Microsoft SQL Server Microsoft has come up with for
Yeah.
their own tool called Microsoft SQL Server. You understood the difference between TSQL and SQL, no?
No, I did not understood much.
Okay.
Sorry.
See, SQL is a language which is
Mm.
designed for interaction with database management, DBMS. That you understood, Aman.
Okay.
For
Yeah.
any database
Huh.
to interact with, they have come up with see, like now WHO is there, no? WHO,
Yeah.
World Health Organization. They are like
Yeah.
head of all the countries. They will monitor the entire set of countries. Okay,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
whatever implementation they want to do, they will come up with a solution, and each and
Yes.
every country, they'll take that solution and they will implement it in their own way. Correct.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
that same way, for interacting with DBMS, SQL is a language which is being defined to
Hmm.
interact with the DBMS. Okay. Again,
Okay.
I've given two examples. Now, one is Android, one is chocolate. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
again,
Yes, sir. Yes.
take chocolate example itself. If you say chocolate, Choco is same. Okay,
Hmm.
for every chocolate to manufacture, they use
Okay, sir,
chocolate.
I understood. Sir, I understood. I understood. That is that
Hmm.
is the standard one. Okay, that
Right,
is the
right,
standard one. So
right.
this is the higher version or the modification which is applied to this TSQL, right?
TSQL is, yeah, correct. I mean, your understanding is correct. TSQL is the programming language which
Huh.
is modified version by Microsoft. Okay, so
One second, sir.
SQL
One
is
second, sir. I will
something.
make a note.
Yeah,
Which is developed by Microsoft.
Microsoft, yes, which is
Developed
developed by
by.
Microsoft. It's called TSQL. The other programming languages also will have their own set of coding standards.
Okay.
Okay,
Hmm.
they will take the same SQL,
Huh.
but they will modify it accordingly as per their requirements.
Okay. Okay.
Microsoft has taken SQL and then they've modified it according to their
Requirement.
database
Huh.
requirement, and they've come up with something called TSQL, Transact-SQL.
Okay.
Understood?
Understood.
Okay, okay, fine. Right. SQL, advantage of SQL, we'll see. Okay. So
Okay.
SQL is not specific to any vendor. As I mentioned, almost every major DBMS supports SQL. So learning this language enable to interact with every database. Once you
Okay.
learn this TSQL or
Huh.
whatever you are doing for Microsoft SQL Server, you can
Huh.
start interacting with any other database also. It's
Okay.
very it's all common. I mentioned, right, 80 to 85% will be common across. So
Okay.
it's easy to implement in other databases also. SQL
Okay.
is easy to learn. The statements are all made up of descriptive English words, and there aren't
Okay.
much of them, right?
Huh. Huh.
Despite its apparent simplicity, SQL is actually a very powerful and complex tool. Okay, so the queries might look simple, but the way it is implemented is in a very complicated way actually. Okay, so
Okay.
initially you might feel it little comfortable, but when you start going to the advanced concepts, there is a lot of complexity available with that. So in either way, it is simple and
Hmm.
complex as well. Okay, so SQL is actually a very powerful language, and by cleverly using it, its language elements, you can perform very complex and sophisticated database operations. Okay, as
Okay.
I mentioned, we'll have numerous list of tables and databases available in a database, and by using your SQL queries in a very intelligent way, you can extract the data whatever you wanted by combining those tables or by splitting those tables and all that we'll do. Okay,
Oh.
so
Okay.
it's simple to learn, not very difficult as such, but the
Hmm.
implementation has a lot of different ways.
Okay.
Sophisticated implementation will be there. So
Okay.
we'll see while writing the queries, we'll try to understand how exactly we'll try to implement that.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So SQL Server, it is a database software. We already saw this. SQL
Yes.
Server, SQL is different. SQL Server is different. Correct? So
Yes.
SQL Server is a database server or database software, or we call it as, we actually should call it as DBMS or database management system, that actually does all the
Huh.
work of storing, retrieving, managing, manipulating the data.
Data. Hmm.
Okay, so SQL Server is a DBMS, SQL is the programming language. That's the
Okay.
difference. If you can understand that, that would be more than enough, right?
Okay. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So we saw advantage of SQL, that the programming language SQL. Now we'll see the advantages of SQL Server, right? So
Okay.
SQL
Hmm.
Server database management system performance. Performance is the main thing which is the first thing which comes into picture when you opt for database management systems like SQL Server, right? So when you see previous versions like Access Server on or Microsoft Excel, they
Hmm.
are also database. They
Hmm.
are also databases. but performance is very slow there. Okay, especially when you are trying to store huge set of data, millions, billions of records of data. If you want to store, SQL is the very good platform to store the data and retrieve the data in a relatively faster way. Okay,
Okay.
so all the databases now, all the web browsers now, whichever you are using, their
Mm.
backend will be SQL Server on any other databases only. Where you, I mean, just
Okay.
imagine Google. Okay, so you type
Mm.
anything,
Mm.
you type any topic, right? You type
Yes.
SQL Server, you type regarding Excel, you type regarding let's say televisions, or you
Yes.
type regarding any concept, anything in Google, within a split second it will give you the results, correct? So
Yes.
how efficiently the database is designed such that whatever you query, within very split seconds, the data is being retrieved. Or not only Google, go to Amazon website or Flipkart website or any e-commerce websites
Yes.
these days. You just type something and press enter. Instantly you will get the results. No delay at all, as
Yes.
if the data is sitting in the in your system itself. It comes like that,
Yes.
correct? But
Mm. Mm.
actually it has to travel some it has to travel lot of servers, it has to do lot of complicated things behind the scenes,
Mm.
and it has to retrieve the data
Mm.
within that short span of time, because there is an efficient database management system sitting at the back end for you to retrieve the data in that minimal time as such. Okay, so
Okay. Okay.
performance is the first thing which comes into picture when it comes
Mm.
to database. Such performance can be achieved using SQL Server. Very, very fast to retrieve data.
Okay.
Right. So the second point is trusted, right? It's obviously a Microsoft vendor, so the trust factor is there. SQL Server is used by most of the important prestigious organizations and websites because there is
Mm.
a brand called Microsoft. Okay. Yes.
Okay.
And
Mm.
integration. SQL Server is integration refers to the what you call it as, if you are trying to interact with other applications, and of course
Okay.
we try interacting with text files, we try interacting Excel files most of the times. So Microsoft will give you good interaction ability. Okay, SQL is tightly
Okay.
integrated with other Microsoft products. So even if you'd have observed this in VBA also, you can easily
Mm.
write a VBA code to open an Outlook mail or to send email within split second. You need not even open Outlook. You can simply write a VBA code to send a Outlook mail, or you can easily update a Word document with VBA code, right?
Mm.
Because they're all Microsoft products, so you can easily write a code without much hassle to interact with Outlook as well as Word document or Access Server or even SQL Server. Because they're
Okay.
all Microsoft products, you can easily get the interaction without much code or without much much difficulty as such. So it will give you a tight integration with other Microsoft products. That's one of the most
Okay.
important advantage. Okay, so
Okay.
when it is a say it, when you opt for other database products, it's little difficult to interact with Excel probably. If they are giving an option, that's fine. If not, we'll have to find out for libraries and all that. We'll have to download additional softwares to interact with other Microsoft products. But with Microsoft, it's all very easy, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And next thing is simplicity, of course. Simplicity, in the sense, it's very easy to use all the Microsoft products. At least I feel it's very easy. You
Yes.
take Excel or you take Access, you take SQL Server, you take Power BI, any Microsoft products,
Mm.
the interaction will be very easy. They will give you very simple way of accessing your options. Okay, there will be properly segregated options for you to easily identify those options and use those options. Wherein some other tools, it's probably little difficult to identify the options where it is and all that. Okay, so
Mm.
Microsoft products are really simple, very easy to use. That's one of the other advantage SQL Server will give as well. SQL Server is one of the easiest database management system to
Mm.
install and get it running. Okay, and it includes administrative tools that makes management of the server very easy and that's very easy to implement as such,
Okay.
right?
Mm.
So these are the basic advantages of your SQL Server.
Okay.
That's why most of the organizations and most of the websites they go for SQL Server itself because of all these
Okay.
advantages, right? So of course, any coin has two sides, no? Uh,
Okay.
the same way, any tool which you take will have advantages as well as disadvantages. So let's see what is the disadvantages with SQL
Okay.
Server. So server only runs on Windows environment. If you are using other environments like, let's say you can't run your SQL Server in your mobile, Android mobile, because it's
Okay.
not Windows OS, no, it's a Linux
Compatible.
OS.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm.
like that, if you are running in a different operating system,
It will not support.
your yeah, it will not support, right? So it will difficult to access that. So server only runs on Windows, and if your services runs
Mm.
on other operating systems like Unix or Linux, then
Mm.
it's you'll not be able to use your SQL Server. So SQL Server is a commercial product, of course, and for those interested in open source offerings, this is DBS maybe other DBMS may be more attractive.
Okay.
Of course, we can get cracked versions. The versions I'm using is a cracked version, uh, which I will be used. But generally, if you are using in a, but it is illegal to use as such cracked versions.
Sorry.
If you are running in a office environment, SQL Server is a commercial product here. It comes with cost.
Sir, your voice is it is it's kind of merging, cracking,
Now it's fine. Now it's fine.
and now it's fine.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So what I was telling, the SQL Server is a commercial
Commercial
product. That
product.
is, you have to buy. Yeah, you have to buy it actually. Okay.
Oh,
So
is
all
it
the
okay?
companies where SQL Server is installed, they will
Huh.
have a license which they need to
Okay,
pay to
okay.
the Microsoft. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Some of, but some other databases in the market they are free, but Microsoft is not free. You will have to
Okay,
pay for it. Of course,
okay.
nothing. I mean, you can, I mean, for an uh,
Huh.
individual purpose, you can download the trail versions and you can get the cracks in the internet. You can
Okay,
install that. Cracked versions you will get. But for office purpose or for the commercial purpose, you will have to purchase it from the Microsoft.
okay.
Those are very minimal disadvantage of SQL Server.
Okay.
Otherwise, more advantages are there compared to disadvantages.
Okay. Sir, I have a small question, sir.
Yeah, yeah,
Sir, as soon as I complete the course, okay. So in order to practice day to day, okay,
yeah.
till I get the job at least.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how can I go about it? Will I get the access, free access, or should we pay for that?
For SQL Server, huh?
Yeah, in order for me to practice, in order for me to write the
Queries
query
and all. Yeah.
and
See,
retrieve
Chandan
or
will help
modify.
you. Chandan will help
Okay, okay,
you. He'll give you the software. He has
uh,
that SQL Server. I think latest version he is using. You can just contact him, ask him for SQL Server software. Once your system is ready, he will
okay.
give you. And installation
Mm,
process, you will get lot of videos in the internet. Okay, so how to install
mm.
SQL Server? If you give in the YouTube, they'll give you detailed steps of how to install. It's a very easy process. Next, next, next. That's it.
Okay,
Okay,
okay.
so
And
you can
how
just
long I can access it, sir? Is there any time limit once we install it
no,
will
no.
run only for
There is no
3 months
time
or?
limit at all. You can access it for lifetime.
Oh,
It's a
super,
cracked
super, sir.
version actually. It's not a uh, it's not a commercial version.
Uh-huh.
It's a cracked version. So once you install it, you can use it
Mm.
forever. There is no time limit as such.
Okay,
You
okay.
can
That will help me
whatever.
to clear the real time scenarios. Like when we go for interview, if they ask me
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
skills, can I practice?
You can. I will give you some examples for you to practice.
Okay, sir.
I will share you some database for you to install, and I'll give you some
Okay,
scenarios to practice as well.
okay,
Parallelly, you can your efforts also required. There are lots and lots of examples you can find through internet,
Okay.
uh, and you can access those internet and you can practice by yourself. There is a
Okay.
very good website called W3 Schools.
W3
W3,
schools.
yeah, W3 Schools. You can just
Okay.
type W3 Schools SQL in Google, and
Huh.
that will give you access to practice also. Okay,
Okay.
they will
Okay.
only
Huh.
give you some sample databases, and they'll allow you to write
Huh.
queries and execute also.
Oh,
Okay,
super.
so
Huh.
that is very useful. That's how initially I used to learn. Okay, once I
Oh.
install SQL Server, I used to practice there, but you can also practice that in the W3 website
Huh.
also. Okay, so there only
Okay.
they'll
Okay.
give you an example,
Hmm.
they'll give you a detailed description of what is what, and
Huh.
they will give option called try yourself. If you click on that try
Okay. Okay.
yourself, you can write your SQL queries yourself, and you can execute and see the
Huh.
results as well. That is also
Oh, nice.
uh, possible there. Okay, so at an
Okay.
initial
Okay.
stage, that is a very good tool, very good website to work on. Okay, so probably you
Okay,
can
sir.
just
Okay, sir.
try accessing that site and
Huh.
execute that. Okay,
Nice, sir. Thank you.
W3 schools.
Okay, sir. I made a note.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. Fine. So next category is next concept is client server software. Okay. So what is a client
Okay.
server software? Uh,
Hmm.
how our SQL Server in will come into in which category our actually our database SQL Server comes in the client server based database.
Okay.
Okay, so that is there will be a
Okay.
client and there will be a server.
Hmm.
Client is nothing but the database software. Okay, and you are trying to access the server. Okay, so it will always
Okay.
be the interacting between client and server. uh, when I
Okay.
also, I mean, if I can give an example of your websites. Okay, so
Huh.
in
Hmm.
every website where you start giving you giver inputs, like your Amazon
Hmm.
or Flipkart, again you give an input,
Huh.
right? Wherever you are giving
Yes.
input, that is your client.
Okay.
Okay, so that is a client machine. Whichever machine you are
Okay.
sitting in and working on, that is called a client machine.
Huh.
Server is a
Okay.
different machine where the database data is stored.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
Hmm.
generally our databases, most of the databases will be client server based uh, databases. Okay,
Okay, sir.
so
Okay.
there is another thing called shared file based. So shared
Huh.
file based includes products such as Microsoft Access. There's something called FileMaker, or designed for desktop use, or generally not intended to use on high-end applications. Okay, so
Okay.
Access is a very low-level database or very initial level database where
Yes,
it
sir.
is only used for individual purpose. Let's say I'm
Okay.
maintaining my own database for my home
Huh.
related purpose, or let's say I'm
Okay.
working in a very small office environment where 2 3 people are working in my office,
Hmm.
a
Hmm.
startup where 2 3 people only there. In that kind of an environment, your shared file based environment is works fine. That is your access
Huh.
server. Okay, so very low
Okay.
level thing. Okay, but whenever
Okay.
you are
Okay.
working in a high level environment where,
Huh.
let's say, your company where 100 employees are there, 200 employees, 1000 employees, very high huge network is there, there
Okay.
your access server will not be sufficient. You'll have to go
Okay.
for something called client server environment. Okay, so your SQL
Okay.
server comes under that category called client server environment. Okay, other than SQL server, your
Okay. Okay.
Oracle, MySQL are all comes under client server based environment databases. Okay,
Okay.
so that's the difference between shared file base means that's a very low level database where only few of the operations are allowed.
Understood.
Okay, client server is very high level operations are allowed.
Okay. Okay.
So that's the
Hmm.
difference. Yeah, right. So yeah, next slide says database servers, right? So
Okay.
client server applications are split into two distinct parts. Okay. So the first part is the server portion is a piece of software that is responsible for all data access and manipulation. Of course, as I mentioned, okay. So that is a database. Whenever a database, that is called as a server, right? So that
Okay.
where your data is actually placed in, that is called a database or a server. Okay, so the
Understood.
server is a piece of software that is responsible for all data access and manipulation that we do using the database server. Okay.
Okay.
Next thing is your client. Client refers to the system where you are working on. Okay, so only the server software interacts with the database files. All requests for data additions and deletions, updations, or through the software will do it in the server. Okay.
Understood.
Okay. Again, client refers to our machine where you are running on. Server refers to the actually the system where the entire data is placed into.
Okay.
Okay, that much if you understand, that is fine.
Okay. Understood.
Yes. Yes, that's what the client says. Client is a piece of software with which the user interacts. If you request, okay, that means you are working, you are the user, no? You works on a piece of computer, that is called the client. So the client is a piece of software with which user interacts. If you request an alphabetic list of products, for example, the client software submits that request over the network through the server software. Okay, server
Okay.
software processes the request, filters, discards, or sorts the data accordingly, and sends the results back to your client software. And the client will display the results in your machine.
Okay.
Okay, so client can be installed in one or more systems. I mean, you can be a client, I can be a client. All the employees working in the organizations are different clients. But server will be the common, correct? Only one
Understood.
database will be there. From there, different clients will be interacted, right?
Yes.
Right. That is what a client server architecture are. Most of our work environments, all the office environments works on this client server architecture only. There will be
Okay.
multiple clients where your systems are running, and all those clients will be attached to a particular server from where the data is extracted. Okay, the
Yeah.
server software SQL Server DBMS, you can run locally installed copy of the clients. Okay, so every instance, if I am working in a system, I'm the client, I have the database connectivity running into my machine. From there, I will try to access the server and run the query.
Access into server.
You are also accessing to the server. Yes, I am a client. You are also a client. Another employee is also a client. There will be many clients. The
But
client
the
can be a
request will
SQL
go to
server,
the same server.
same server.
Hmm.
It can be a single server. Again, it can be multiple servers also.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Hmm.
yeah, so based on, let's say, if it is a small organization having, let's say, 1,000 employees, every
Okay.
1,000 or 2,000, even 10,000 employees, you can have
Okay.
one server. That should be enough. Okay,
Okay.
if it is a huge network, then there will be multiple servers again. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, that's how
Okay.
it works. So the
Okay.
client can be SQL Server, including tools, scripting languages like we have different applications like Perl, web application development languages like ASP, ASP.NET,
SAP.
JSP, Java, .NET, okay, Visual Basic, VB.NET, C, C++, all that are clients.
Okay.
Okay, so we access the data from the database, but we can access that from different clients. Okay, let's say
Okay.
if I'm writing the code inside Java, we have a tool called Tomcat. Tomcat is the client.
Hmm.
Java server will have a server. Same way
Hmm.
ASP.NET.
Okay.
ASP.NET is a client. Okay,
Okay.
same way SQL Server DBMS software which we are running now,
Hmm.
SQL Server 2014, that is also one client with
Okay.
which you are trying to interact with the server and pick the data from there. Clear, na? You understood
Yes.
what is client server architecture? So in
Yes.
most of the
Yes.
real-time organizations, it will be client server architecture only, from where
Understood.
you try to extract the data.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So that is the basic introduction theory of what is database, what is database objects, what is SQL, what is SQL Server, what
Okay.
is the client, what is server. So you got a
Hmm.
basic idea, right? How
Yes.
exactly
Yes.
things work with SQL Server.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now from tomorrow onwards, we'll actually jump into the designing tables. How exactly? What is the concept used to define tables and all that? Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow also.
Okay.
We'll try to see some concepts. We have a concept called normalization concept. We'll see that.
Hmm.
and probably meanwhile try to figure out your system related issues also. From
Sure,
Monday
sir.
onwards,
By
we'll start
tomorrow.
creating database.
Oh, okay, okay.